Podcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Okay, thank you for attending this Monday classroom session from Shortcuts. Today we're going to be focusing on inventory management. I noticed that a couple of attendees are still joining us. If you're still getting ready, don't worry, we are recording today's session and we will send you the link after we're done recording it today. So my name is Noah. I'm one of the educators with Shortcuts, and we are hosting a series of Monday sessions to get you or your staff up to speed on the basics of Shortcuts. Today is one of the big things that not everybody is taking full advantage of, or if you've been trained a long time ago, perhaps this is a good refresher for you or your staff to make sure that you know how you're tracking inventory and how to get it into the system. So similar to other presentations, let's do some basics. So this webinar is about 30 minutes, maybe a little bit more. We are going to allow some time for questions and answers. My microphone is on, of course, and on your side it's muted. If anybody can't hear me, or if you're looking at these slides and you're not getting any audio, on the right side of your screen you should have a little button that allows you to send a question or to put a chat message in. So let me see. It looks like we're already getting questions even before print a list with items in inventory. Seems like there is only an option that prints a total list. So Alex already has a question. We'll get to this question when we get to the end of the presentation, Alex. Specifically, he wants to know, is there a way to just print a list of items in inventory instead of just a total list? So I assume you're trying to get just a list of a particular company or line. So we'll get to that in a moment. So I assume Alex can hear me if he's asking questions. So let's actually begin. So the focus of today, we've got a lot of things we want to cover. We need you to understand that there's actually a relationship between suppliers, companies, lines, and products. So most of you, if you're dealing with any sort of retail or even back bar items, you already know that Shortcuts has a way of tracking this information. But what not everybody realizes is that in order to help Shortcuts track this information and to give you more accurate reports, you always want to know that there's a relationship between suppliers and companies specifically whenever you're introducing new items. So of course we're going to review the product screen. We're going to talk about adding suppliers, companies, and lines, and how to update your levels. What are your current levels, minimums and maximums? And you should be familiar with how to inactivate and reactivate products. So we're going to look at viewing the movement history, being able to create and complete an inventory count. So this is something that you might do once a year, you might do every quarter, or even annually. So how do you take inventory? And of course, creating and receiving an order, and taking a look at some of your key reports. So what is this relationship I'm talking about between supplier, company, line, and product? In your Shortcuts inventory, these items are actually connected. And this is exactly how the hierarchy works. At the top level, you should create a supplier. Whether you have one major supplier or multiple suppliers, if you're ever ordering or receiving using the Shortcut system, you want to make sure that this is always where you begin. And then once you have a list of suppliers available, then you'll want to introduce your companies, your lines, and your individual products. So let's actually take a look at the product screen. So when we're adding a supplier, a company, or a line, on the right side, you're going to go to your inventory button, sometimes called the stock button, and into your product list. On the bottom right corner, I'll actually pause this video for just a moment so that you know exactly how to get here. So when you have Shortcuts running, again, on the right side, we're going to inventory products. Now, the majority of you are already familiar with this screen. You know how to add companies, you know how to add lines and products. But the most important thing is always to know who your supplier is. So on the bottom right corner, if you haven't already done this, it's never too late to go back and start fixing your inventory management. So you want to sort by supplier first and foremost. So in my case, I have 3 major suppliers. Either I get my items from Cosmoprof, Empire Beauty Supply, or IBS. If I needed to add another company, I would press the new button on the bottom left corner. So let's just say I order Suavecito hair care products directly from the manufacturer. So Suavecito is my supplier. And when I have a moment, I can go to the details button at the bottom center of the screen and add my supplier information. If you ever use shortcuts to order a product, whether you're printing the order and giving it to your rep or you're emailing it directly to your rep, the information that you put on the screen will actually appear on that order form. So on the left, their contact details, I should say. On the right side, if you have an account number, a shipping reference number, things like that. So always put in this information first. After this is done, then you can begin adding your companies, your lines, and your products. So if you had previously created a company but had never created your supplier, you can still choose that company, and at the bottom of the screen, go to your details wrench. And this is where you can tell shortcuts. Okay, going forwards, anytime I add more products to American Crew in this example, I always order it from Empire Barber Supply. So let's go back. So that's the hierarchy that I'm talking about. So back to our presentation. So you always want to make sure you have your suppliers listed first. And after the fact, you can still move products into your supplier list. So in the same scenario, we're adding a new supplier. So Diamond Hair Supplies. I'm going to the details wrench. I'm going to add the contact information for Diamond Supplies. So on the bottom left corner, if you email directly to your supplier, this is where you enter that contact information. Once your supplier is listed, you can sort by company and line. And now you can add a new company. And in this case, we're adding Cutting Edge. We're telling shortcuts our supplier is Diamond Hair Supplies. And if you like to break your information into specific categories, you do have the ability to create those. So let's say we're not going to enter all of the information. We've added a company, we're selecting that company, and we're pressing New. So now we're introducing a line. So from Cutting Edge, one of the main lines that they carry is color hold. If I happen to have a picture and I want to get really specific with this company, I can go to my supplier, right-click, and choose a supplier picture for it. There usually is a physical limitation with this. It's about 100 by 100, and it's a 256 color BMP image. That's if you wanted to have actual logos show up on this window. Okay, so with that said, here we go. So we've added our company, we've added our line, and we should have our product added. So with the products specifically, we've added our company and our line. Our line was color hold. If I press New, I type the name of the actual product. Now it's important. For most companies, they have anywhere from 2 to 3 different sizes for the product. So it doesn't hurt to put in how many milliliters, how many ounces this particular product is. Because your store, your shop may actually sell all of the different sizes. So you'll put in a buy price and a sell price if you have that. In the middle of the screen, this is where you keep track of your counts. Current is how many you currently have in stock, whereas maximum and minimum. This is how Shortcuts knows. Whenever you order these products, against which number do you order? Do you order against the minimum number or a maximum number? And then at the point of sale, if this is enabled on your screen, whenever you sell this product and you're down, in this case to our last 3, you're going to get a window to show you only have 3 bottles left in stock. This will be your reminder that it's time to order. On the right side, if you have the retail column, you can actually tell Shortcuts, is this a retail product? Can a customer buy this? Do I have a barcode for it? Or if this is a back bar item and only staff should use this, then I can mark it as professional. Now, we'll actually pause there for just a moment and go back into the shortcuts. Because if you notice, my window has all of that information. Buy price, sell price, taxes, current levels, minimum, maximums. But on the right side, I do not have a column that says retail or professional. If that's the case in your business, then at the very top of the screen, where my column headers are, where it says primary, warning, things like that, I can right-click, go to Properties, and add the retail column. So now I can be very specific. And let's say I had a liter or a gallon of a certain product, which is back bar only. I can choose this pull down and tell Shortcuts, okay, this specific item is professional use only. In this case, this item never shows up in the point of sale for a customer. Only the business can use this. So let's jump back to our presentation. So that is how you add your suppliers and your products. Now, what about inactivating certain companies? So how do you go about that? Oh, my screen just moved. There we are. So on the bottom left corner of your inventory screen, you will have the ability to bring back any items that you had made inactive. So I'm actually going to show you that in my shortcut system. So perhaps at some point, American Crew no longer makes this particular product, my heavy hold pomade. So what I would do is go to the right column and uncheck active. So I no longer carry it, the company no longer produces this item. Once I do that, and I return to my inventory screen, that specific item is gone. American Crew, styling, and my pomade is no longer there. But let's say American Crew was just taking a couple of months off to recreate a brand new formula, and they start selling it again, and of course I'd like to carry it. So to bring it back, on the bottom left corner, there's a column that says Show Me Inactive. So I can click the checkbox, open up my American Crew folder again, and it's highlighted in gray. And I'm going to tell Shortcuts, I'd like to bring this back. I'd like to make it active again. So that's how you can always hide items that you no longer sell or bring them back if you decide to carry them again. So once I press done, that item has now been returned to my list, Heavy Hold Pomade. So let's continue. So then, what about your movement history? How do you know about things like that? So for any item, if you go select the product and go to the details, on the left side of the screen you have an options column, which will show you all of the history for this item. How much was sold, how much was received, how much was counted, was it a stock take, was it a manual update, was this something that was bundled into a gift basket, for example. So you have the complete A to Z on everything that's ever happened with that product. So what about counting your inventory? Now, before we do a count, I am going to pause for another moment. And on that option screen, the one that we just looked at. So if I select a product and I go to the details for it, so this is where you go to movement history. But just above that, there is a button that says barcodes. So why is this important? Well, normally, if you have a barcode scanner in Shortcuts, whatever barcode you have here, when you scan it at the point of sale, Shortcuts can add this as a line item. But at some point, you're going to receive a shipment from your supplier. The product's the same size, same price, same everything, except the manufacturer updated their barcodes. So the downside is you still have 7 or 8 bottles on your shelf, and you just got a shipment of 6 more, but these 6 new bottles have a different barcode. So you don't want to erase the old barcode because you still sell these old bottles. So how do you record new barcodes? You would return to the Details button. And on the left side, you'd go to Barcodes. So Shortcuts will recognize, okay, this is my original barcode for this item. However, I'm going to press New and tell Shortcuts, I just got a brand new barcode for this item. So at the point of sale, whether you have the old barcode or the new barcode, Shortcuts will remember it's the same product. And then going forwards, every time I want to order, I'm going to make this new barcode my primary barcode, and that's on the right side. So do consider looking at the options, the details for your inventory. So now, doing an actual inventory count. Let's jump back to the presentation. So whether you do it once a year or once a quarter, you want to go through the process. On your inventory screen, the first thing you'll do is you're going to create a new count. You don't have to count everything that you carry. If you decide I'm only going to count one company or one line, you can absolutely label it. Then on the top right, once you label it, you're going to add and tell Shortcuts, what do you plan on counting? In this case, I only want to count my Dermalogica Age Smart items. Am I going to add anything else? Yes or no? And then am I ready to begin the count? Yes. Once I begin the count, Shortcuts allows me to print up a screen of reports, forms that will help me fill in this information. And once I start my count, I can go into Shortcuts and start filling in all of these details. When I'm complete with my count, I can say, yes, I'm ready to finish. That's the little checkered flag icon. And Shortcuts will warn me. It'll say, are you sure you want to commit to this count? Because I noticed the numbers you counted are different than the numbers we have in inventory. It will actually give you a chance to go back and make changes in case you caught a mistake. But if you're absolutely sure, you can say, yes, I'm ready to continue. And then when you press done, whatever count you actually took will replace the count that Shortcuts normally has in its inventory screen. So creating an order. We're going to go ahead and begin with that. So an order is very similar in the terms of steps as it would be for when you're doing a count. So under your inventory screen, we're going to select a supplier first. So this is why having suppliers is very important. Once you select a supplier, you can tell Shortcuts, am I going to order just professional, just retail, or a mix of everything? Now, if you had minimum or maximum levels selected, then Shortcuts is going to go against whichever number you prefer and help put together an order for you. So it will, in some cases, pre-populate this. If you decide, I don't need certain items on this list, you can select them and remove them. Conversely, if you need to add additional things to this list, you can always press the Add button. and add an item or two. Of course, you just want to make sure that whichever products you add, they're from the same supplier. If you know your distributor gives you a discount if you do a certain order, you can press the line discount item or the order discount button and tell Shortcuts, I actually get a discount if I order these certain things. Do you have a freight charge? Do you want to save this and go back to it later? When you're ready to order this, whether you're going to print it or email it, you would press order. So Shortcuts will always ask you, if you have your email in your supplier list, do you want to send it? And it'll go through the process. So since this is the first time I'm actually sending through Shortcuts, I need to give Shortcuts permission to send through Microsoft Outlook in this case, my default email engine. And just like that, Shortcuts has sent them an order form. And it has your contact information, your supplier contact information, and your totals. So I'm going to pause for just a second. I think I had another question come up. Can you tell us what labels we need to purchase to accurately print barcodes? A specific Avery SKU would be extremely helpful. So we'll pause for just a moment. So Sean has a question, and we're going to jump back into Shortcuts for a moment. So for some of you, you actually print up your own barcodes, and you want to have that barcode, the name of the product, the price, all available on a little sticker. So to do that, the first thing you need to do is tell Shortcuts which company or which line is in need of a barcode. Now, to make things easy, you can always go to the very top of the screen and choose Business on the top left corner of your product screen and right-click the word Business. One of your options is to actually set your label type, change label type. There's 3 standard labels in Shortcuts, and these all correspond with Avery sticker paper. So I'm going to show you the most popular. The medium size label will actually have the barcode and the product information on it. If you were to choose the small, it's just the barcode, you have no details. So it can be kind of dangerous if you have clear bottles and you don't know what's in it. So we always advise medium. Once you right-click and tell Shortcuts, I'm changing my label type to medium, then Shortcuts is going to apply that size to all of the companies and all of the lines you have. Now, when you're ready to print those labels, you can right-click one specific item if you need to print labels for this item, or you can right-click on the entire line and then tell Shortcuts, I need to print my barcodes. The label wizard will come up and it will ask me exactly how many of each particular label do I need. 5 of this one, 7 of this one, 4 of this one, etc., etc. Now, at the top of my list, this is where Shortcuts tells me what specific Avery label paper type do you need. In this case, it's 5160, 5160. That's medium-sized sticker paper. And most office supplies will have that or will have a comparable to Avery 5160. On the next window, you don't even have to start with a fresh sheet each time you need to print these. You can start in the middle of a specific row or column and then tell Shortcuts, okay, go ahead and start printing these labels for me. So labels are very handy when you're dealing with your inventory because sometimes you have a bottle and the print on the bottle rubs off and you're not quite sure, was this a shampoo, was this a conditioner, whatever portion on the bottle has been wiped off. But as long as you still have that barcode or the ability to print up that barcode, you can always affix that to your bottle. The other thing that you should know is on this window, I'd like everybody that's sitting in on this class to always know about these 2 buttons. On your keyboard, if you press F3, as in Franklin 3, you're going to have a keyword search come up on your screen. Or sorry, yep, a keyword search. And what the keyword search does is it allows you to type the name of a product. And that will, oh, I'm not using my extended keyboard, that's the problem. So if you have a bottle and the label's worn off a little bit, if you press F3, then Shortcuts will let you type the name of a product so that you can find it. So Go Clean, that's what I'm looking for. And Shortcuts will highlight that item. So that's your keyword search. That F3 button also works in your point of sale if you just want to type in the name of the item. Because some businesses don't have barcode scanners at the front counter or with the receptionist, but you still have a large inventory. So to help the receptionist at the point of sale, you can just press F3 and look for the item. The other way you can search is if you do have a barcode scanner and you do have your barcodes in your inventory, you can always press F5 and search for products that way. Now let's go back a little bit. So Alexa has a question regarding minimum versus maximum counts and which shortcuts uses to add to ordering. Excellent question. So I'm in Redken style Go Clean, and I'm going to give this example. I have 7 bottles currently, and I tell Shortcuts my maximum is 10. The minimum I should have is 4. And at the point of sale, when I'm down to my last 2, I want Shortcuts to remind me that I only have 2 left in stock so I can order them. So based on these numbers, what is Shortcuts going to put on an order form? If I were to tell Shortcuts, order against my maximum number, then Shortcuts will look at my Redken styling products and it will recommend you need to order 3 bottles so that you can get to your maximum level if I go against my maximum. If I tell Shortcuts, order against my minimum, then Shortcuts will look at my Redken style and it will say, you don't need to order any. You're currently well above your minimum. So how exactly does Shortcuts know against which number are you going to order? Because technically, you don't have to set both a maximum and a minimum. If every time you order, you always order against the maximum. If you go to Setup, and this is protected by security, so you may not have the ability to go to this particular feature, Setup Configuration. On the left side of the screen, you're going to the button that says General. And once you're in General, there is an Inventory button. And this is where we tell Shortcuts against which level are we ordering. The default, I have it set to maximum. The good thing about knowing this screen and knowing what you're setting against it is that Shortcuts is really trying to help you order and stay on top of your inventory management. It's a very powerful system. And the more you use Shortcuts to order, to track, to receive your items, the smarter the system becomes. By default, Shortcuts would like to analyze every 90 days, so every 3 months worth of ordering and receiving. Shortcuts is trying to help you figure out, should you make adjustments to your counts? The next time you order, do you want to order more or less? So that is where your statistics calculator comes into play. And that's under Inventory. It's the bottom button, Statistics Calculation. This is a feature that I feel not enough businesses are taking advantage of. Because if you've been using Shortcuts for years, if you've been ordering and receiving for years, then you can actually tell Shortcuts, I'd like to do a calculation on a very specific company or a very specific line or supplier. And then in this case, if it's the holiday season, and I always know that I do a lot more retail around the holidays, help me adjust for how much more I need to order so that I don't run out during my holidays. So it's very important that you order and receive, and Shortcuts knows to track it. I'm getting a drink of water right now. Pardon me. So whenever Shortcuts creates an order form, it always wants to cover at least the next 14 days, the next 2 weeks worth of products, whether it's spec bar or retail. How much should be on that order form against your maximum, against how much you're currently doing. So you can always adjust this. If your business orders once a month, you can absolutely tell Shortcuts this is the default days to cover. If you know you have a rep that always takes an extra day or two to get your order together and to get it to you, you can always build in a lead time, perhaps a day or two. So all of this can be updated in Shortcuts. Sorry, I'm coughing up a storm. There, that's better. Okay, I hope that answers the question. So let's continue with this side. If a product doesn't have a barcode, can Shortcuts create barcodes for use with the product? Yes, whenever you add a new item, and I'm actually going to introduce a new item. So I'm in Recon Style, and I'll press New, and I'll just call this New Style. 300 ml. If I don't have a default barcode that I scan in, as soon as I start putting in pricing information, you'll actually notice that Shortcuts is just going to put in a random barcode here. So 0000Y. So your business could technically create their own random barcodes here. If most barcodes, I think they're like 9 characters long. So your business could create a 9-character barcode and just make up your own numbers. 1, 2, 3, 7, 7, 7, 4, and you know exactly what that 1, 2, 3 line is going to be for your business. Okay. So let's go back to the presentation. So we talked about creating orders. Now receiving an order. The steps for receiving an order are very complementary to placing an order. You go through the same screen. You tell Shortcuts from which supplier are you ordering from. And instead of pressing the order button, you're really pressing the receive button. So whenever you press order, Shortcuts will keep that in the outstanding line until you actually receive the shipment. Once you do, Shortcuts will confirm this is how many you ordered, these were your totals. Do you have to make any adjustments to this? So yes, when I ordered the primer, I only received 2. So Shortcuts will ask, okay, since you only received 2 out of the 5 that you ordered, do you want me to put 3 on back order that you haven't received it? I can say yes or no. And then, did I get an invoice number? I can populate that on the top right, and then I can officially receive this order. So it's going to update my levels and also give me the ability to print up my barcodes if I want. So whether your business prints those barcodes or they just use the barcodes on the bottle, that's how we would have that information. Okay, so that makes sense for everybody. And of course, whenever I actually receive those 3 missing bottles, I can always return to my order screen, choose that particular line, and then update it and receive those items that were missing. So what reports should you be looking at whenever you're dealing with inventory? So when you go to your inventory category under reports, the ones I want you to focus on are inventory control report, inventory movement history, inventory received, your inventory received summary, your outstanding orders. So these are the big ones. Of course, there's a bunch of other reports we have in Shortcuts, but when it comes to dealing with inventory, these are the major reports. So I'll leave this on the screen for just a moment so that when you review this video later, you'll have the details for what appears in this report. So in summary, we've covered a lot of material today. So you should now know or be more familiar with the relationship between your suppliers, companies, lines, and products, how to access your product setup screen, how to access your supplier information, how to put in your products, set your current minimums and maximums, how to activate and inactivate items, how to go to your detail screen, view your movement history, update your barcodes, how to do an inventory count, how to place and receive an order, and of course the big reports. So we always are presenting webinars. If you'd like to sign up for our future webinars, go ahead and visit us online at shortcuts.net and webinars. All of our previous webinars are recorded and in our library. So now we're opening up the floor to you for questions and answers. So I'm going to go through the list of questions that have already been asked and see if I can help. So I'll scroll back to the top of my list. So while I'm going through this list, you're welcome to go ahead and just post another question on the right bar. So is there a way to print a list with items in inventory? Seems like there is only an option to print a total list. So I'm actually going to get out of the presentation and go back to shortcuts. So when you need to print a list for a very specific company, when you go to Tools and Reports, and you go to Inventory. Now, the Control Report is historically one of the most popular ones because it shows what you currently have, anything that you have on order, the value of items that you have, things like that. When you view certain reports, on the left side of the screen, you're going to have different options. If you're running employee reports, it'll give you options like selecting a specific employee. When you're in inventory, instead of seeing that, you have the product list. So maybe instead of printing every company that I have under the sun, I just want to look at my American crew. So if I choose it and press add on this list, then when I print this report, that's all that will appear on it, all of my American crew items. So in this case, I haven't ordered anything and my stock is currently set to 0 because this is my practice database, but you'd have the ability to filter out more items on your site. And that goes for a number of your inventory reports. Whenever you choose them and you view them, in some cases you have the ability to just filter out for specific companies and lines. So don't forget to check under your options. So let me scroll down. I think another one appeared. We talked about the labels. We talked about minimums and maximums and adding barcodes. I missed how to start or receive an order. We always have an invoice sheet. Ah, good question, Robin. So let's go back to that. So we'll do a quick one on ordering and receiving again. So if you've never used shortcuts to order and receive, I'd like you to start getting into this habit, especially so shortcuts can actually help you track how much you're going through in retail and professional. So normally, if you're not doing this, you just go into the company and you manually update your current levels. I want you to get out of that habit. Instead, on the right side, I want you to go to inventory and ordering. Whether this is your first order or your millionth order, we should start tracking it. At the very top of the screen, before you order anything, you need to tell shortcuts from which supplier are you about to order. So I can say I'm going to order from IBS. Once I choose my supplier, on the bottom left corner, I'm going to press New. So shortcuts will say, hey, I've never run the statistics calculator. Are you sure you don't want to run it so that you can make sure your order numbers are correct? And I'll say, no, I'm not going to order or run it just yet. So Shortcuts is going to say, okay, if you're going to order from IBS, are you going to order back bar, retail, or a little bit of everything? I can say a little bit of everything. Now, if I had set my minimums and maximums, then Shortcuts will just auto-populate this window. And since I've never done that, I need to tell it what do I need to order. So I can press the Add button on the bottom left corner and say, I'm ordering everything from IBS, which is really just 3 products. But at the bottom of the screen, if you're not necessarily ordering everything that one supplier has, you can tell Shortcuts, I'd rather order just from a company in a line. So I'm going to order just Johnny B specifically. And then press the Add button. Or done. No, add first, then done. And then how many am I going to order? So I would tell Shortcuts, I'm going to order 6 of this, and 10 of this, and 10 of this. So these steps are very simple. At the bottom of the screen, this is where you really make the distinction. If I were to press the Order button, then this is where Shortcuts gives me the ability to print my order or to email my order to my rep if I have their information on my options. If I am just skipping this step and I went to the Johnny B website or my IBS supplier website and I typed in my order directly on their webpage and I'm actually receiving the items and I want Shortcuts to track it, I can do that on this window as well without having to press the Order button. Instead, on the top right corner, I could type in my invoice number from the shipment I just received. Did I have to pay shipping for this? I can press the Freight button and update how much I had to pay in that. And then, when I press the Receive button, again, not necessarily having to press Order, I'm just receiving this. Then Shortcuts will update my quantity based on the numbers that I've entered. So the process is very complementary. Whether you're ordering or receiving through Shortcuts, these are the steps that you take. Of course, in most cases you're going to order, it'll take you a few days, and then you're going to receive it. So I can actually save my order and return to it later. Anything that you save, and we'll go ahead and press done, will stay on the list. So later on, if I decide to add a few more products to my order before I place it, I can return to ordering, and there's my saved order. And I can continue to edit that. Okay, I hope that answers your question, Robin. All right, are there any other questions that anybody may have? I'll give you a moment. And I'll go through the list again. I'll also check my chat window in case somebody typed in a message there. That looks complete. I'll go to the bottom of my list. Okay, so I think I've answered any questions regarding inventory that you might have had. We always have a video series on dealing with inventory available on our Shortcuts webpage, on our Learning Center section. So if you review this presentation and if you want to focus on just something specifically, you can absolutely watch additional videos on our webpage. Oh, and I think one more question just came in. There are a few things that you went over that I do not have access to. Does corporate put those in? In some cases, if you are an enterprise customer, a number of your inventory options are set by corporate. So some of the windows that you've been seeing may not necessarily apply to your business. You'd probably have to speak with a corporate person about updating certain levels. And I also have a question from Marcy. When receiving the order... Oh. I think Marcy had a question on receiving the order. I think that question got cut off, Marcy. You just asked a portion about receiving the order, but I don't have the context. There we are. Is there a way to delete a product line when you don't use it? Again, in shortcuts, we would never advise to delete customers, products, or services, even if the customer no longer visits you or you no longer sell the product. And the reason for that is because at the end of the year, when you're doing your reports, when you're doing your taxes, you want to be able to prove that you had certain customers, services, or products sold. So if you start deleting things, then it's kind of hard to prove you ever did any business. So what we advise, instead of deleting companies or lines or suppliers, is choose the item you no longer carry, and on the right side, make it inactive. At some point in the future, you may bring it back. You may never bring it back. But the reason we do this is because at the end of the year, when you're doing your reports, you want to press the checkbox that says show me inactive. So you can bring those items back, run your reports, and you'll know that every report is accurate because you never deleted the information. Okay, let's see, is there another question? And I'll go through the list again. In ordering from another state, how do I make the taxes match if ordering from another state and maxing the taxes match when receiving? Okay, so Marcy has a good question. So if you have to have a special tax or a certain tax or a certain price on shipping, if you go to Setup Configuration, and on the bottom left corner, you go to your region option, you should have a tax option. Now, for most businesses, you're going to have some sort of tax rate for selling products. And in other areas, you're going to have a tax also when you sell services. Now, what about buy tax? Does your area charge a certain buy tax, or does that buy tax apply when you order from a certain supplier or a certain company? If those are the cases, on this window, you can create custom taxes. Whether you're selling or buying items or services, this is where you create that information. And then on the bottom left, or on the bottom center, does the product sell? Does the sell price include tax? Does the product buy price include tax? Do expenses include tax? So these are different types of tax rates that you can have. Now, when you're placing an order, and you go to a specific order, we're going to go to that IBS order I had. On the bottom, where it says tax, any specific tax that you had should be applied here, and that's if you're creating those. If we go to your product screen, we have our buy price, our sell tax. If I right-click on my column again, I can add what is my buy tax for this item. Should it be applied when I'm ordering? So you can actually add that column and then adjust your buy tax for certain companies or lines. So that is entirely programmable in the system. Okay, let's go back to the questions. And I hope that answers your question, Marcy. So you do have the ability to set different taxes, different tax rates for items. Okay, if there are no other questions, then we'll be wrapping up this presentation. Thank you for attending, everybody. If you have any more questions, if anything comes up, you can always reach out to us. We are available, education@shortcuts.net. We will read the questions, we'll get back to you, and of course we'll send you a copy of today's presentation. If anything else comes up, if you have other ideas or other questions, you can always reach us on Facebook. We'll always check that and get back to you as well. Plus, our number is always available to you. Thank you for attending, and I look forward to seeing you on the next classroom presentation. Have a great day.